Well, we're back here at the engine again, back at the clutch side of the 230. I went to Honda today to pick up some of the parts that I've been waiting for, and they said that they did actually import a few of the FTR 223s and XR 230s and XL 230s back in the around about 2005, 2006. So this engine could very well be out of one of those motorbikes. Of course, this frame is not the frame that this engine normally comes in. This is the ctx200 frame that I'm fitting the engine into, and it fits in perfectly. Yeah, because when I got the engine, there were some parts on this side of the engine that were missing, so I've had to wait for them to arrive. They came ex-Japan. So what just arrived is this little sleeve here. Okay, that's called the inner guide for the clutch basket. Okay, and the other part that arrived is this little spacer or washer. And the other part that I managed to pick up off auction site is this part here, which is the push rod, the clutch push rod that pushes in against the release bearing. I'm still waiting for my release bearing to arrive. That shouldn't be too far off. When the release bearing is here, then I can box everything up completely on this side. I checked the plates, and they're in good condition, so I'm not going to worry about changing those at this stage. I think they've been changed at some stage over the engine's life anyway. So the problem that I had was, because this engine isn't a CRF 230 engine, and the side cover for the clutch is this side cover here, and this side cover is very similar to an XR200 side cover. And you'll notice down in here where the actuator pushes out onto the push rod, there is no hole to support the push rod. So the push rod sits in here, just in that space there, and it's supported by this piece here, which slides into the end of the shaft here. So it fits into the shaft like this. The bearing sits just here. So when you operate the actuator, this pushes in on the release bearing, which releases the spring pressure on the clutch plate pack, allowing the clutch to slip. Fairly common way of doing things. The biggest problem I had is that this part here was missing, and I had no idea what it looked like until I started looking at XR200 engine parts lists, and that's when I saw this piece, because the CRF 230 is just this piece here. It doesn't have the shaft extending, so just that part there, because this part here sits into a hole that is part of the housing on the CRF 230 clutch cover. So yeah, getting there slowly now. Once the bearing arrives, it'll sit into this piece here. It's a 35mm bearing, 17mm center with an 8mm width to it. Just fits nicely into that space there. That'll sit in here, of course, as it sits on top of this piece. Springs, of course, there are going to sit in below those, and everything goes back nicely. This piece here slides on nicely. That sits on there, allowing this here to go on. A little bit hard with one hand. That goes right back, so that sits right back flush there, meshing in nicely with the crankshaft. Down in there, That's where the spinner sits. That's the spinner there. And followed by this spacer here, sits there. And then we just fit the clutch. Clutch just goes in there. Just going to line everything up. Again, not too easy by just one-handed. Anyway, you can get the picture. That'll slide all in there, followed by the springs. This plate here, the bolts go through there, bearing sits in there, and put the spinner back on, and getting pretty close then to adding the gasket and putting the cover back into position onto the crankcase. So thank you for taking interest in this project so far. I've still got a little way to go before I can completely box this up, because I've got to wait for that bearing to arrive. When that comes, I'll do an update video on putting this together completely, talking everything up to the right specs, and this side of the engine should hopefully be pretty close to finish. Then I can go back over to the other side, just check around my alternator stator, make sure everything's all okay there, tighten that up for good, fit the starter motor, fit the exhaust system, fit the carburetor, and then we're going to start working on the electrics to make sure everything's all okay with the splicing in of the of this engine into the ctx200 wiring loom. And thank you to my subscribers, and especially to new subscribers who have recently joined my channel. I really do appreciate you doing this, and I'm hoping that the content that I'll be bringing to you will be of interest to you. So I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you.